parents wrote a letter. On the envelope, it detailed, "Dear America." But it wasn't until I boarded the plane from Ho Chi Minh City and flew here to America that I truly understood what it meant. So I continued writing for them. This letter bears the crushing weight of my parents' hopes, their work sustained to fulfill my education, their dreams dwarfed by mine, of an entire generation of young Vietnamese raised to leave our country someday, seeking a better education, life while undermining the wonder of warranty, without realizing that their invaluable cultures and something remarkable. I wrote this letter with my heart spurring on my sleeves, and the lines heavy on my lips with the weight of my future, and the weight of the past I can't leave behind, and found the right anchor. Now I hope you find yours. Dear America, do you know how much your education, your culture costs? More than you might think. Did you know that your education comes at a price of my culture, of my parents' lifetime of savings, of the insurmountable amount of finance dedicated to it, of the amount of savings not spent on future vacations, not for probable financial emergencies in the future, not for a better place to live that's closer to my mom's factory hours away, not for a car, a basic mode of transportation in a city as large as ours, where public transport isn't ideal. No. Did you know that money is spent for me to study abroad? An American education is pricey. It's pricier than the insurmountable amount of savings dedicated to it by Vietnamese parents who told themselves they could cut down on their living expenses for the sake of their children. It costs more than relationships, cultural identities, and a home. Now, what is home to you? Is your home on 1926 Westheimer Road, Houston, Texas? Or is it 10,000 miles away across the Pacific Ocean? Is it outside? Or is it within? I'm a third culture kid. I'm one who belongs to everywhere and absolutely nowhere. I was born and raised in Vietnam, but a little longer than a year ago. My family moved to Myanmar, a country that, unsurprisingly, not a lot of people here or knows where it is. And now I'm studying here, halfway across the world from them. Home for me is no longer a concept fixed in time and space, and like me, it grows from one place to another. Behind it always stood my family and the culture they embody and carry across any nations my dad's job would eventually demand him to relocate us to. But even so, switching cultures is something I could easily afford, not on top of your costly American education. Dear America, I've asked myself whose fault it is to blame for these sacrifices that every Vietnamese seen in the future this generation will eventually have to come. The thinking of making, at some point in their education career. If it's their own culture, we should be looking at. Why is it so ingrained in our mentality the belief that we must work until we retire for our children and expect them to do the same for them? If we just do what Americans do, raise our kids to be independent, just kick them out at 18, receive their retirement pay grade, and live happily ever after. Why not? No, we don't have the financial liberty, because instead of growing stronger, our kids would suffer. No, it's in our economic disparity to blame. That's no one's fault, but the rift born from this difference in wealth is far greater than the distance between our countries. One nation aspirations always come up shorter than another. Your dream, the American dream of fulfillment, shaking with vibrancy that epitomizes your tomorrow when it holds for your youth, stands one continent away from my Vietnamese dream. You believe in the ideal culture of working to live, a work grounded to the stability and sameness of living to work. From such a young age, we all learn to pronounce education and culture. Letter by letter, B-E-T-T-E-R, better. In your foreign language, that true to our mother tongue, long before we learn to lose these values in our own language. Long before we learn to yearn for what your American dream holds and proudly would be sad to learn how ours can't compete. Little do we know that the culture that we wish to deny our identity of isn't something culture and education rendered us perspective. They're core to identity and ways no teaching can hope to change. We speak a language that is acronym by a world-class rank or being spoken across 70 nations worldwide. It reflects truly in what our communities cherish. Close-knitness and dependency of our people, not for better, but for D-E-A-R-E-R, dearer. I admire those who stand up for Vietnamese values, love it fearlessly, and own up to the culture shamelessly in spite of those who wish to leave behind what has defined home in America. I simply have something to prove. Among us, the immigrant, the foreign student, the third culture kid, and all other multinational identities living in America. We share a silent understanding that this land of opportunities and dreamers takes just as much as it gives. Sincerely, a Vietnamese youth caught in between. This is where my parents' letter ends. Someday, I'll write a letter for my own children, and on the envelope, it would detail, Dear America. But it would be a very long time until they could truly feel the weight of this letter, and the one that came before it. And there would be stories of my youth, and my parents' testimony for the culture they passed down to their daughter, who for her adolescence years had begun losing its finest touches, because that's the sacrifice that her parents chose to make for her. I have lived that story, and I sincerely hope that my children will live its difficulty and glory all the same. For those who are me, for those who can relate to the home I have but can't quite reach, for those whose dreams are bigger than the bubble that their culture could cover, whose ambitions soar higher than the security the safety net of their culture could offer, find your words, write your letters. What is your aim?